the Jam Yearbook. I'm Jim.
And I'm Matt.
We're here to take you on a journey through the years as we explore the music in our lifetime and the impact it's had on us and the world we've lived in.
Welcome to version 1972. No big preambles this time. We had a couple people to honor by way of the Reaper, and then it's on to some absolutely fantastic music.
Yes, it is. I will kick it off with the Reaper, and we will start with Ross S. Bagdasarian. I think that's how you say it. Apologies. Well,
Who?
also known as Dave Seville, creator of Alvin and the Chipmunks. Dave from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yay, Dave.
You know who that is.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He also wrote the Witch Doctor song, which surprised me. I didn't know that until this
Walla
week.
Walla Bing Bang.
Exactly. Along with the Christmas Chipmunk song, he scored 2 #1 hits. Imagine this legacy. Our parents knew the Chipmunks. We grew up with the Chipmunks. Your kids knew the Chipmunks. And the next generation's grandchildren will probably know them too.
All in a different way, too.
Oh, yeah. It's
Art
incredible.
form-wise, yeah.
And I can still hear Dave's voice in my head screaming, Alvin! It's quite a legacy from somebody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love the Chipmunks. And then we have Les Harvey. He's a lesser known member of the 27 Club, but his story is very interesting. His death inspired a very tall tale. Les Harvey wasn't a name I really remembered belonging to the 27 Club, but I vaguely remember hearing this story. While performing with his band, Stone the Crows, he was electrocuted. He touched a microphone that wasn't grounded while he was holding the strings on his guitar with his other hand. He completed a circuit, and, well, it didn't end well, unfortunately. The tall tale was that it was a rainy day and there were puddles on the stage, but they were playing an indoor venue at the time of the accident.
I spent a life of playing gigs and setting up outside so many times hearing the story about the dude that died from electrocution on stage.
And that's exactly what it was. I just never heard the name associated with it.
Yeah, it always seemed like a tall tale or a legend. And then I found out about Les Harvey this week, and I was finally able to put that story together.
This is it. Our final year to recap on the Jam Yearbook. We can either have a sigh of relief or a celebration. We're probably going to have a little bit of both. But we're back in the 70s where we have found so much gold in previous versions. In 1972, we promise you is no different. I'm happy this is the final year we're recapping because it is so incredible.
Yeah, there's really some magic here in 1972. And not just because it was the year I was born. That makes it great. There are some big surprises at what was going on in certain scenes when I dug a little deeper. But before we get too far into that, aside from being born myself, look at some of the bands that debuted in the year. Let you start us off. The big debuts are there.
The Eagles. We haven't brought the Eagles up too much during the course of the Jam Yearbook, so I can't remember what we've said about them beyond being familiar refrain, fatigued by the music. There have been a few bands we haven't fully embraced on the show like they deserve to be. And maybe we're initially worried about coming off like, the typical middle-aged guys who only like classic rock. But really, what are we going to say about bands like the Eagles that hasn't already been said?
Very true.
Does anyone know that they don't or never did exist? It's like Coke. Does Coke really need to have commercials anymore? If you don't, I highly recommend checking out the Eagles because they have some great songs.
Yeah, I think it was a standard rite of passage, definitely for our generation to go through an Eagles phase.
Of course, especially that Greatest Hits album.
Oh, big time. And how they sold so many albums because we had to go and buy it for a couple of generations. Their music was just in the middle of country and rock, and everybody feels comfortable there. Songs like Take It Easy and Peaceful, Easy Feeling, they've remained timeless over all these years, regardless of whether or not the dude thinks they suck. He was probably all hurt inside when they broke up and he just didn't want to admit it.
He probably got stood up on his date so, she could go to an Eagles concert.
Coldplay.
And I think this is a casualty of streaming music, right? You no longer feel the need to buy like a greatest hits album because things are at your fingertips. And at least when I find if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. So if I don't see a CD, cassette, vinyl album on the shelf, I'm not going to listen to it. So this is where I think all but a very few handful of songs from certain artists will get listened to, in the future. So, that's going to happen. We're not going to stop the progress
No,
of time.
no, that's true. And the Eagles will wind up into the future still getting listened to.
Yes, but unfortunately, it's only going to be what Hotel California, A Witchy Woman,
Take it
and
easy. And
Desperado.
they probably have a half a dozen or more songs that will last.
But probably more, getting back to the Eagles, probably more about their demise is known about their formation. Glenn Fry and Don Henley were part of Linda Ronstadt's backing band. They had talked to her about going their own way to form their own band, and she thought Bernie Ledden, who was in the Flying Burrito Brothers at the time, would be a good fit. She got Bernie Ledden to play with the band one night in order to make the introduction and kind of further things along.
Uh-huh.
The Eagles play on her 1972 self-titled album. I've always kind of thought of Linda Ronstadt as a central figure in that Laurel Canyon scene at the
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Always supported. Everybody absolutely loved not just her voice, but the person that she was, because she always seemed like that. I hesitate to say motherly figure, but she was just that rock for everybody to lean on.
There was a sweetness to her that I think people really appreciated and enjoyed being around.
Yeah, and I think she truly embraced the idea of promoting others
Yeah. Yep.
because that's how we all succeed.
She made family out of those musicians there in Laurel Canyon.
Oh, that's a perfect way to put it.
Yeah.
Jackson Brown was also in her orbit. On the same album, she had the Eagles as part of her backing band. She recorded the Jackson Brown song Rock Me on the Water. He also co-wrote Take It Easy with Glenn Fry on the Eagles debut. But the Jackson Brown song in 1972 is Doctor My Eyes.
Yeah, it's a good song. Jackson Brown had been writing songs for others for quite some time. He'd actually written a song for Nico from Velvet Underground when he was 16 years old.
Well, they were dating too at some point.
Yeah, they were. Yeah. And when he recorded his first album, the prolific session band, The Section, were backing him. They'd worked on Carole King's Tapestry. They'd played with James Taylor and also backed up Linda Ronstadt. It seems like Linda Ronstadt's going to connect all of our dots in 1972.
And she does. She's awesome.
Yeah, because she was also one of the background vocalists on Neil Young's Harvest, along with James Taylor, Stephen Stills, and Graham Nash. Miss Ronstadt was keeping some impressive company.
Yeah, she was highly regarded and sought after, not just for her voice, but because, as I said earlier, she just seemed like an amazing person to be around. You brought up Neil Young, and she had covered his song Birds for that same 1972 album.
Yeah, and then she went on in 1975 to cover and make a hit out of his song Love is a Rose. So,
yeah, I don't know if she was so much involved with the songwriting as she was just an immense talent.
yeah, I think that's how she was recognized. And Harvest, I'm going to go back to that from Neil Young. It was a seminal album for him and the fans. When I was learning to play guitar, Needle and the Damage Done and Heart of Gold were a must. Old Man, it's a heart-tugging classic. It makes you think about your dad. And then Sugar Mountain, it didn't even make the album. It wound up on Decade, his greatest hits.
I'm not a huge Neil Young fan, but those are some fabulous songs.
Yeah. And Man Needs a Maid, it's beautiful and dramatic. I could spend a lot of time talking about this album and how much it influenced me, but I'm not going to because there were other albums. There's other music in 1972.
Yeah, trust me, folks. He will go on and on.
Yeah, this was part of my musical fabric, but we'll move on.
And we're going to change directions quite abruptly here and talk about the Scorpions. Transparency here. Jim is the one that put the Scorpions debut in the notes. And thank you, because I wanted to, and then I pulled back because I'm like, no, people are going to think, Matt, you're just being an idiot again. But you knew I was going to try to slip this in here. Lonesome Crow is not Rock You Like a Hurricane era Scorpions. Especially in the opening track, you can hear some Black Sabbath influence. It's dark. The album is it's psychedelic. It's melodic. It's moody. This was the only Scorpions album with Michael Schenker on lead guitar, who we talked about last week in version 1986 for the Macaulay Schenker group. Yeah. He was only 16 at the time.
That's nuts.
Yeah, because he sounded so much older just in the how he could play.
Yeah, it's very mature sounding guitar playing. It starts off sounding a little bit like the Doors to me. The song "I'm Going Mad," it starts with like a drum intro that at first I was like, are they starting this album off with a drum solo? It
Yeah,
almost
yeah, and
seemed
then
that way.
Klaus comes in,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the album dips into late 60s, early 70s psychedelic rock sounds, and it pulls it off really well. So, to the opposite side of that, since you flipped us over one way, I'm going to flip us over sideways the other
Flip
way,
that pancake, Jim.
and we're
Let's
going to
go.
go to another side of the musical spectrum and another big debut, and that's Roxy Music.
Mm.
Doing this show has really changed some perspectives of mine. I never cared for Roxy Music. This week, I put on their 1972 debut and was finally able to wrap my head around what was going on. We both definitely like bands that have been influenced by them. We've talked about Pottery in a recent show, a new band that we both really liked, and I found some similarities in the chaos that they bring to their songs, and Roxy Music does that. I can imagine it was a lot of fun to watch them pull this stuff off live when they were up and coming.
Organized chaos for sure. There nothing on that album sounds like it wasn't very well thought out, but it still sounds spontaneous at the
Mm-hmm.
same time. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's very odd to say. And this album is one of the huge surprises for me this week because, like you, I had written off Roxy Music a long time ago, but damn, finally found some great Roxy music. And I put it
Yeah.
on after listening to Lou Reed's Transformer. It was the perfect primer to finally get this album. I don't know if it's going to be a gateway to liking everything they've done. And at times I could also hear where maybe Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo could have gotten some vocal inspiration. I love it when I can finally connect with a band I had written off a long time ago. This was
Yeah.
a great album this
Yeah.
week.
I'm glad we got it.
And another unexpectedly enjoyable listen was the debut from Styx, mainly because I'd never listened to it before. I usually go for the deep dive into bands, but Styx, they never inspired me to go too far down their rabbit hole.
Uh-huh.
It's a brand of prog I can tolerate.
I think we might have differed a little bit as how we heard this. I think we have had this philosophy mainly based on the bands we grew up with in the 80s and 90s, because that's what we're more familiar with, that bands produce their best material more often over the first couple of albums and then tend to fizzle out.
Facts, yep.
I'm finding the opposite of this in the early to mid 70s rock bands. We have Styx here, and in the next few years, we'll have early albums from REO Speedwagon, Foreigner, Queen, even, just as a few examples. But these bands get better and better as they go up forward for at least the next decade. I think this would be a subject for a future jam show. Did bands find their sweet spot at different times by era? Inquiring minds want to know.
I'm gonna try to tune out that you brought Queen into that conversation,
That
but whoa, maybe you meant to say Fleetwood Mac.
was a completely different band. They didn't even have the same members in 1972.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how we're thinking. REO Speedwagon, right? They're with Scorpions,
Mm-hmm.
right? How they're kind of completely different to what they morphed into. And don't get me wrong, this is no Paradise Theater or even Kilroy was here, but it's refreshing from what we're used to hearing from them. And what happened to Styx was Dennis DeYoung started outpacing everyone else in writing. That he completely took over songwriting by the time Equinox came along, which also kind of coincided when Tommy Shaw joined the band. But before I get too far into that, that's probably for another show. You got me going there. Another classic that you hear on the radio is the Edgar Winter Group. He debuted in 1972.
We had Frankenstein and Free Ride. Come on, that riff at the beginning of Free Ride on the guitar
Oh,
is just so great.
that song, there are songs where I'm obviously fatigued, common thing we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
But dang, Free Ride kicks ass.
Oh, yeah. The Edgar Winter Group was made for the then and the now and the future of classic rock radio. Those riffs and their songs, they're iconic. But some bands that didn't debut in 1972, we need to move on and talk about some other albums that came out. And it wasn't an album, but it was a song. So I'm just going to dig into some controversy. And actually, we don't get many chances to talk about the Beatles. John Lennon had an album come out in 1972 with the Plastic Ono Band, and Wings released a very controversial song called Give Ireland Back to Ireland, which immediately got banned by the BBC because it was seen as promoting the IRA. But banning it made it more popular, and it wound up actually charting in the UK.
Jeez, isn't that the way it always works? How do we not draw attention to something, right? Ban it.
That's it.
Explicit warnings worked great for album sales in
Yeah,
the 80s,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it did.
Jesus.
I'm not buying it unless it
Stupid.
has the E sticker on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Stupid.
And John Lennon, when he wasn't making this album with the Plastic Ono Band, he had been hosting the Mike Douglas show, but also mired in controversy because he had his visa taken away, or I think it had expired. And when he applied to remain in the United States, it took him 3 years, I think, to wind up getting residency in the US after that.
And what was the cause of that? Was it the drugs, the bed-in?
It was Richard Nixon not liking John
Oh,
Lennon.
that's
It
right,
was.
Richard Nixon.
Yeah,
Yeah, I forgot about that part of it.
Yeah,
That's all you got to say, and then all of that information just
Just
floods back into
comes
the
right
right side
back.
of my brain.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then we had Paul Simon. Paul Simon had his second album, and it's called Paul Simon, Paul Simon. Does it mean it's self-titled, or did he need an album named after himself to make sure that people understood there wouldn't be any Garfunkel this time?
I'm surprised you didn't write a song titled Paul Simon just for the trifecta middle fingers at art.
Oh, no kidding.
I love what they accomplished together, but I'm glad they hated each other so much so we could have songs like Mother and Child Reunion and Me and Julio Down by the Schoolyard.
Yeah.
And I always kind of want to, I know it's probably not that, but they knew each other since they were 11. And I always want to think that maybe Julio is a substitute for Art Garfunkel.
Oh, could be. That's a cool thought. Yeah. Yeah. And they're timeless classics. Good stuff.
Yeah, they are. And then Jethro Tull, Thick as a Brick.
Yeah. Flutes and rock bands.
That hold anything for you? It's an odd concept. It can work.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even just now, Lizzo was playing Glastonbury and brought her flute out on stage. So it's in pop music at this very moment. And how many times did we listen to Paul Simon's You Can Call Me Al or Men at Work's Down Under? It definitely does work. I think as a unique lead instrument, it can wear people down a bit and gets a little tiresome after a while. But showcased in small doses, it can be a lot of fun too.
And Can't Heat going up the country, right? I mean, that's a great flute song. I don't know if we could ever do a special on flute rock, though.
No, probably not.
I think we just did it in like 3 minutes.
That's it.
I think we're done. Deep Purple, Machine Head, Smoke on the Water. Come on.
Yeah.
Not a song I need to hear again. Probably ever.
Come
Come on, Beavis. Let's go. But it's one of the first songs most guitarists learn to play. Even non-guitarists probably learn how to play this. I think people are born knowing that riff exists now.
I'm with you on all accounts of what you just said. Smoke on the Water has been played and overplayed, but it was most certainly the second riff I probably ever learned how to play. I think I said in a previous show, Rock You Like a Hurricane was the first riff. So I will here and now credit Smoke on the Water with
Hell of a riff. Yeah, good one.
Yeah. But I'll give a shout out to Highway Star off this album, Machine Head.
Yeah, fucking awesome.
It rocks. It has a fantastic intro that builds up and it gets you excited to get right into the meat and potatoes of the song.
Oh, that is a great fucking song.
Yeah. So switching gears from Deep Purple, it's funny how we go back and forth this way. Very kind of soft rock, but almost kind of early alternative indie, in my opinion. There was Big Star. They had an album called Number One Record. I mean, if you want to really just try to put something out there, call it Number One Record.
Yeah, it's like having your first album be called like Greatest Hits or Best Of.
I think it might have cursed them because not a lot of people know about Big Star. I was introduced to them only a couple of years ago. I brought the song Ellis Chilton from the Replacements to the last episode, version 1987. And I didn't really know much about him a couple of years ago. I just knew the song, didn't know really what it was about. They were hugely influential on a lot of the 80s and 90s alternative music that we listened to. There were a lot of expectations for them, but for some reason, I'm not quite sure, they did not explode onto the scene the way people expected them to.
And I will say, The Replacements is probably the only reason I know of Big Star
Yeah.
because of Alex Chilton,
Yeah. Yep.
that song. But another, sometimes the bands, Mark Bowen, T-Rex, right?
Yeah.
We keep saying how influential they are to other bands, but the ones that are influential, they're the foundation. They don't get mentioned as much as the ones that burn the
I
brightest.
bet Mark Bolan was hugely influential to a lot of the hair metal bands that you loved. The lead
Oh,
singers. Yeah.
oh, definitely.
Big time. Yeah.
Definitely.
T-Rex, come on.
Oh, come on.
Mm,
Yeah. Glam was hugely influential to the hair
it
metals.
was. So another big album that we can't go through 1972 and not talk about is the Rolling Stones' Exile on Main Street. I think this is the hipster Stones album to get into, but I'm okay with that. Personally, as much as I struggle with them and the simplicity of their music and sound, this album for me is fantastic. It melds British rock, Americana, and blues all together seamlessly. Torn and Frayed should be in my 5 or 10 if we allowed some. We'll get down to that road a
Yeah,
little bit
more on
later.
that later. Yeah. Yeah, our struggles with the Stones, they are well known. And it's partial, it's ignorance. It's a bit of a generalization to say I don't like them. It's not accurate. You brought up a term last week, selective. And I think that probably more suits with groups like the Stones. There are plenty of Stone songs I like a lot. Tumbling Dice is one of them. I toyed with it in my 5 this week.
Yep.
Um, Exile, it sounds like a bar band album, which is fine. And I think that's what you mean by simplistic.
Mm-hmm.
But because the Stones have so much cachet, it gets catapulted. Jay Giles, that they're like that too. That's a big drop off from from the Stones to Jay Giles, but I'm just trying to explain my point. Springsteen may have been a better comparison there because a lot of his stuff as well sounds like local bar band. I could just go down to Nectar's and see a band playing this kind of music. And plus, I'm more of a Beggar's Banquet guy anyway.
Yeah, that's your album.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just almost alluded to something and then I pulled back. We've been waiting to get through the show because I didn't realize until this week 1972 may have been the biggest year ever for soul music. And maybe another year has a best song or album, but the sheer volume of soul classics that came out of 1972 when I started to dig deeper blew me away. So I suggested, Matt, I sent you a message. I typed it in the notes. I was like, we need to create 2 lists of songs from 1972. This is a little bit different. Our regular 5, which we'll hang on to towards the end, but we're going to pick 5 soul classics a piece to put on the playlist because they all deserve to be there.
Yeah. And in the notes, I had mentioned, you probably didn't see it before you listened to that playlist, that, dude, I need like 10 songs. And it was based on listening to playlists on whatever streaming device you want. And all of these soul classics were just pouring into my ears. And I'm grabbing my phone going, oh crap, is this 71, 73 or 72? And yes, it's 72.
Yeah.
And there are times like this. We've been adding 10 songs on certain years. It seems like pretty frequently lately, but 72, it definitely deserves it. And the soul alone deserves 5.
Yes.
From each of us.
Yes.
Because it's so amazing. It was just that big in 1972. So, Jim, say what you want to say. I'll say what I want to say on my songs, and we'll put this away and we'll get on to our regular 5 at the end. This will kind of be like name checking, but we're going to put these songs in the playlist because they got to be there.
Yeah.
I may have some soul hanging around for my standard 5 as well. That's just going to happen. It was just that big in 1972. Sound good to you, Jim?
Yeah, that sounds good. I think I would overuse the word smooth if I went on talking about these songs anyway, just over and over again.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm going to start with, Al Green, who may have defined smooth in the 70s. It's easy to use that word straight away. I'm adding Let's Stay Together to the playlist. It's probably his biggest hit, and it belongs on the playlist.
Yeah. Billy Paul, me and Mrs. Jones, we both got to avoid using that smooth. Me and Mrs. Jones, it adds a splash of jets.
Yeah.
No, go, man. That's exactly what I wanted to do, but I was too afraid to. I can never turn down an opportunity, belt that line
Oh,
out.
it's so good.
Me,
But then another
Mrs.
song that was so incredible.
Jones.
Oh, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mac Ranier.
Yeah.
We've got the Temptations. Papa was a Rolling Stone. You just want to sing these songs when you read the title.
Exactly.
They transitioned their 60s style easily into 70s soul with this song. It has that big, great dramatic intro that pays off once the song kicks in. It's so cool.
The Chi-Lites, Oh Girl. We're going to have a moment of silence so everyone can sing that to themselves.
Be in trouble if you need me
Oh,
now.
girl.
After that, we have Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes. The song is If You Don't Know Me By Now. When I say those words, you want to sing them. Most people are probably more familiar with the Simply Red cover because it was a smash hit, definitely for our generation. But the original is the best version. I'd rather have this version on the playlist so listeners can know where it came from. It just feels more real.
You know why it feels more real?
Because it is.
Teddy Pendergrass, man.
It is.
Teddy Pendergrass.
Yeah.
It's so awesome. I'm going to bring the main ingredient. Everybody plays the fool. As with all of these soul hits, I won't say they don't make music like they used to anymore. I'm sure somewhere someone is. They just don't make enough of it, or it's not getting enough attention. This is an awesome song.
Yeah, it is. And then I'm going to bring little Michael Jackson and his song or version of the song Rockin' Robin to the playlist. We haven't had the opportunity to add the Jackson 5 songs to the playlist because they fall just outside our years of doing this show. But I know you and I both loved them growing up. This is a song when he was still little Michael and all of that magic that he was capturing was still there. It's one of the first 45s I remember being in the house from my earliest memories.
Then there's Cornelius Brothers and Sister Rose. Too late to turn back now.
Yeah.
Great songs never die. This will be around forever.
Talking about a great song. Every time Bobby Womack sang Across 110th Street.
God, you're making me want to stop recording and listening right now.
Bobby Womack has such a smooth and sweet voice. This song is like butter and sugar mixed together for the auditory senses. And it grooves. When the chorus kicks in, you just want to start moving along to it.
Oh, all of this stuff has just been in my wheelhouse all week.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's just so amazing. I'm going to go with Isley Brothers. Pop that thing. It's slinky, funky, soulful. The Isley Brothers have missed the cut a few times, but they aren't slipping through my fingers this week. We've talked about how some songs will make you drive faster. Pop that thing does the exact opposite. It is such a great chill out song.
So there we go. Those are the 10 songs that we are going to bring to the playlist from soul music. And I'm happy to have them there. You happy, Matt?
Oh, I'm ecstatic, man.
Good.
I just want to go back and listen to all those songs.
Well, we can do it because they'll be on the playlist. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So 1972, as we wrap it up, I do believe it's my birth year, so I get to go first.
Yeah, happy birthday, Jim. Go at it. What's your first song?
All right, so my first song in my 5 that I originally chose for this week is Jim Croce's You Don't Mess Around with Jim. This just makes sense to me.
I've learned over the course of the show.
Yeah.
Don't talk shit about The Cure.
How could I not bring this to the playlist? It was the first song I put into my notes straight away when we were doing 1972, even though it's nowhere near the musically best, because I grew up thinking this was my theme song. The Lone Ranger, Superman, and Jim. I am in good company right there. Ironically, I didn't realize as a kid it was about Jim getting his ass handed to him in a bar fight. It took me a while to figure that one out.
Don't mess around with Slim, man.
Yeah. He sang about Superman, that's what you're going to like when you're a kid.
Exactly. Being so young, when I first heard it, I considered it a kid song.
Yeah.
He's singing about Superman.
Yeah. Lone Ranger.
Yeah. And our generation might be the last ones to really know about the Lone Rangers.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So what is yours?
my first song, I'm going to keep us right there. And I'm going to go with Jim Croce and Time on a Bottle. This is one of my all-time favorite songs. I don't remember when I first heard it. It's been around our whole lives. One of the songs I distinctly remember hearing on the Muppet Show. Yay! It's only appropriate that we have our last show bring up the Muppet Show because I feel
Yay!
like it's been a few years since we brought them up. An old scientist Muppet, he would drink a potion and get younger with each verse, only to become old again at the end of the song. So on a personal note, Kim and I, we had two songs at our wedding, You Are So Beautiful by Joe Cocker, and this one, Time in a Bottle. But Time in a Bottle was also playing when our youngest son, Owen, was born. So this song, it's been woven into my entire life. It's just a special song for me.
It's a beautiful song. I love how the song shifts from minor to major keys between the verse and the chorus. The
Oh, yeah.
verses are so,
That makes a hit.
oh yeah, it's so contemplative, but the chorus is really hopeful. We don't have a lot of time in this world on a grand scale, but we can choose who we want to spend that time with. I love that theme in the song.
Oh, yeah, I agree, Jim. Great song. But you're going to bring us on to your second song.
I am. And we're going to go back to Transformer, the album by Lou Reed from 1972. It was a huge success on his terms, and songs like Satellite of Love and I'm sure Walk on the Wild Side will have a chance on the poll. They could have easily been added by me to this playlist, but I'm going to go with the song Perfect Day. I have a lot of internal connection with this song where it taps me emotionally when I listen to it. It had a resurgence when I first came to Scotland in 1997, popular again from the movie Trainspotting. And there was also a British all-star charity single that covered it. So it was all over TV at the time. It was very popular. And when I hear it today, I'm immediately transported back to Edinburgh and to Princess Street Gardens, sitting on a bench and watching this strange new world just move about me.
Yeah, this is an underrated song. Kind of what we were talking about with streaming services, how certain even great songs
Mhm.
are going to get left by the wayside, and I fear this is going to be one of them. It feels like Walk on the Wild Side is going to be the only song you hear of Lou Reed going
I
forward.
completely disagree with you because in the UK, you will hear Perfect Day 100 times more than you'll hear Walk on the Wild
Oh,
Side.
maybe I need to try to listen to radio more because I never hear the song, and
Yeah,
it's so
it
awesome. I
is. It
love
is.
that
It
song
is.
so much. Great addition.
Thank you. I'm happy to have it on the playlist. So, where are you taking us next?
I'm gonna bring some more soul
Of
back
course
into
you
the
are.
game. The Staple Singers, I'll take you there. When I first looked at all the releases for 1972, I did not expect it to be so hard to choose 5 songs. I left a comment in the notes for Jim this week saying, I wish we had pushed for 10 songs. Well, you already know that we did 10 songs, and I'm so thankful. And you are right. I'll be bringing more soul and R&B to my 5, especially with this song right here. As soon as I heard that horn blast, I grabbed my phone to make sure. Oh, I'll take you there. Oh shit, is it 71? Is it 73? Nope, it was 72. Funky bass groove, smooth soul singing. Songs like this put a smile on my face and make everything right in the world. I love it so much.
It's a great song. I hear this song quite a bit. It's used in a travel agency commercial over here.
I
So,
could see that.
yeah,
I'll take you
yeah,
there. Yeah.
exactly. But I'm not complaining because this is not a song that you get sick of. It's great to get to hear the entire thing as well instead of just the snippet in the commercial for
I'll
me.
take you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ba-dum, bum, ba-dum. Great playlist choice. Good stuff.
All right. So we're up to your third song.
My third song. Well, I'm going to bring up a band that we've never talked about in the entire show, but I'm happy to bring this song, Mott the Hoople. That's not the name of the song. That's the name of the band, people. Mott the Hoople. And the song is All the Young Dudes. I'm not going to take a lot of time talking about this song, but I really liked Mott the Hoople. Great album that they put out in 1972. And to me, this song is iconic. It's a triumph in the vein of Bolan and Bowie, but it carves out its own place in my own personal music catalog.
Mott the Hoople, they are a very worthy addition to the playlist. It's not just a great song, but this band, similar to Bolan's T-Rex, they were often cited as influences to 80s hair bands
Yeah.
or new glam, as we like to call them. I remember the first time I heard it, I thought this was Bowie. And you know what? It's probably because Bowie wrote the song.
He did write it, and he would cover it and play it. I think it might even I think he might have put it on one of his albums at one point. But Mott the Hoople have the big hit out of it. So
They do.
yeah, cool. You got more soul for us, Matt? What's coming up next?
You're damn right I do.
Yeah.
Betty Wright, Cleanup Woman. I can't listen to 70s music and not get stuck on this genre, and you're all coming on a ride with me. In doing this show, I am so thankful I've gotten to reconnect with it. I get so wrapped into trying to find what's my next favorite thing, what's great, what's new, what haven't I heard before that I can fall in love with, and I leave behind what's important and meaningful. If you don't know Cleanup Woman by name, you'll know it within 2 seconds hearing that opening guitar.
Yeah. Oh, come on, Matt. It has been a good ride. Great song. All of this classic soul music. It's been so refreshing in 1972. And to hear this was great this week. This is one I haven't heard enough of. I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. Good song.
I like it a lot. Oh, I believe we're up to number 4. What's your number 4
Oh,
song?
Matt can count this week. Wow.
I can. And I've had beer.
Yes,
folks.
I'm quite
so
impressed.
it's not all I can count to 4 and I've had 4 beers.
Well, we didn't count the soul song, so that's probably why.
Oh, true.
But my fourth song is Steelers Wheel, Stuck in the Middle. I'm sure there are a lot of people right away that know that song. We've brought up Jerry Rafferty a few times in this show, and it'd be a shame to leave his most well-known and possibly best song off the playlist. You can't hear this song now and possibly immediately flash to a rather graphic scene in the movie Reservoir Dogs if you've seen it. But if it's that scene very well, it's still a great song on its own. Well, it's not a blues rock song. This one settles right in with a bar band set of music for people who want to get up and just dance. We can't wind up 1972 after all we've said about Mr. Rafferty and not add this song to the playlist. I'm not chancing it with a poll. It's going to be there.
No, it has to be on there. Such a cool song. And I always think I'm going to get tired of it, but it hasn't happened yet. You ever listen to K. Billy's Super Sounds of the 70s, Jim?
I'm glad I've got earphones on right now to protect my earlobes.
Yeah, I hear this song. That's all I can think of is Michael Madsen just doing that little kind of, I won't call it a dance. It's more kind of like a strut.
Yeah, it
going
is.
across
Something happening.
as he's terrorizing that cop with the straight razor. It's amazing.
It is. So 1972, it's time for your number 4, Matt. What is it going to be?
I gotcha.
Yeah, you do.
Joe Tex, I gotcha. Great bass line, awesome horns, incredible vocal performance, and so much great positive energy. Such a fun soul funk song. Bobby Womack, you mentioned earlier, he may be the butter and sugar, but Joe Tex is the damn hot sauce.
Oh, he is. This is an infectious groove. When I listened to the song, I kid you not, for the next half an hour to an hour, I walked around with my brain just running this bass line over and over again through it. It's so good.
It's infectious. You
Yeah,
can't help
yeah,
it. Diddle-dum, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And the horns making the right exclamations.
It
Oh,
is
man.
a tremendous pull for the show. I love the energy and the feel. I talk about those songs that people are going to go look at their phones and go, what is the magic going on here? What is this song? And this is another one of those.
It's Joe Tex, man. Love that song.
Yeah.
I gotcha. All right, Jim. This is your last chance to add something from 1972. So, what is your 5th song for 1972?
It's not just
you gonna
1972,
disappoint us?
but this is the last song from all of the years. I know we're probably going to talk at the end about doing a cleanup, but if we're just looking at the years,
Yeah,
this is
it
it.
is weird, huh?
Okay, so here we are, 1972, the rise and fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. You should probably crack a beer or something because this is going to take a moment.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go walk the dog.
There you go. This album is as much a part of my musical fabric as the Beatles or Nirvana or anything else, really. When I was 17, I fell for a girl and she was a huge Bowie fan. When she broke my heart, I went out and bought the songbook for this album. And as I was learning to play guitar, spent hours poring over it. I probably thought I was going to pull a John Cusack, but guitar version, and play the entire album to her on guitar, causing her to fall in love with me all over again, and I'd win her back. Didn't happen.
I can see that image, you holding your guitar over your head, but it's not doing
It's
anything.
not. But this album, it stuck with me. Cinderblock Baby, we covered Ziggy Stardust. I've had multiple conversations with other Bowie fans about what the best song off the album is. Honestly, I wrestled in my mind all week with Soul Love or Starman. Lady Stardust is a beautiful piano ballad that was inspired by Mark Bolan, who we just talked about, appearing in TV and glam makeup for the first time in the UK. Bowie didn't invent the phrase wham bam thank you ma'am. Apparently it had been around since the 50s, but he definitely popularized it in the 70s with Suffragette City. Even the way the album begins with 5 years, the announcer has come on TV to let people know that Earth was dying and they all only had 5 years to live. It's a compelling start to a concept album. But as much as I've loved all of those songs, nothing, and I even listened to it today before the show just to make sure, gets me as much as Rock and Roll Suicide. The mood of this song, the instrumentation from the acoustic guitar to the horns, and then the crying emotional plea and Bowie's voice at the end of "You're not alone." Everybody's dying at the end of this, and they're not alone. Nobody's alone in this moment. I added this song in the notes as soon as we started the show as the Bowie song that I wanted to take off this album, and I just never changed it.
Oh, wait, let me take myself off mute. You're done?
I'm done.
Or I'm glad you went that in depth, because you rarely do on a song. So I'm glad you were able to bear yourself like that. This is where we may, I won't say diverge, but I'm obviously Bowie challenged. And I gave this album some listens this week. This is a great song to add. I really love the horns at the end.
Yeah.
You would think this is a concept album, and I love concept albums, but I think I came to it too late before I got tired of like Suffragette City, because that's a great song. It really is a great song, but radio killed it.
Yeah,
for
there
me.
are songs off the album that definitely got overplayed. Suffragette City definitely was that classic rock radio song.
Yep.
But
I think Ziggy Stardust, this album, it highlights what's kind of missing in rock music: glam.
Yeah. Yep.
People may want to poo-poo or shit all over or glam because of the makeup and the costumes, but there is a raw creativity in glam that I think is kind of missing today in music.
I agree.
That I think it could benefit from.
And I messaged you just yesterday and I was like, is Bowie emo? And no, it's not punk, and punk does get more related to emo.
I think it's closer to punk than emo.
But I look at a band like My Chemical Romance, and even though they're not a band that I really embraced in the late 2000s, I can hear how they were vocally, at least and songwriting wise, inspired by Bowie. And a lot of those emo bands, and I'm not going to go goth because goth kind of has its own thing that happened with the eye makeup and the way people looked. A lot that I read wants to compare emo to punk music, but I think emo transformed at the end of the 2000s, and there was a lot more melody involved in it. And I kind of got worn out on that whiny voice stuff that was going on in emo.
Oh, yeah.
And then I came back to this Bowie album and I was listening to these songs this week and I was like, well, that's what Bowie sounds like to me on this.
Kind of. But yeah, emo, I get what you mean. It's very on the surface. It's not really deep. It's like, oh, I'm so sad. It's like, oh yeah, okay, I understand, but let's get past it. But at least in Ziggy, the goddamn world's ending.
Yeah, there's something big going on.
Exactly. That's why everybody's connected.
No, that's a good point. They are connected. Yeah. So, all right, let's get away from that. I've gone on. I could talk for another hour about Ziggy Stardust.
Yes, he could.
Let's get to your final song of the show this week. The final song from 1972 and from our years of doing this show.
All right, this feels a little odd for me to bring in because it's like an iconic song. I don't know if I really bring in too many of those, but Bill Withers, Lean on Me.
Oh,
I'm stealing an obvious poll edition, but I wanted to make sure Lean on Me made the playlist. It's legendary, one of the best songs ever. Everyone knows the words, loves to sing along, even if you think you're tired of it, right?
hmm.
It just needs to be there. Honorable mention to Use Me. That was my initial, but I'm like, how do I leave Lean on Me to chance on the
You
poll?
can't.
Because the sentiment in that song is superb.
Hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And don't worry, Use Me will show up on the poll.
It will. And Steal Away. This song is amazing. And I'll love having it come around anytime on the playlist. I think Lean on Me is as close as you can get to being a gospel song without being religious. It's a it's a
Yeah.
it's about being there for each other, relating to one another, and lifting each other up. I don't know if it would really be possible to write a song like this today and have it be a smash hit. But with all the troubles that were going on in the world in the early 1970s, I'm certain it picked up a lot of people who were feeling down.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a more perfect song in the world. This is
It
awesome.
is.
But wait, Jim,
Yeah.
we're not done.
Okay.
We're not done yet. We felt that 10 songs wasn't enough. We're adding a shared song this week. Promise. Pinky swear promise. This is the last one. Version 1972. And really, the whole Jam Yearbook playlist would not be complete without this last song. Me and Jim, we both love the early 70s post Motown era of Stevie Wonder. In 1972, Stevie Wonder is only 22 years old and releasing his 14th and
Wow.
15th albums.
That's amazing.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's an amazing accomplishment. It's even more amazing because his music is incredible.
Mhm.
He was reaching an age where he wanted to add social commentary as an element in his songwriting, similar to what Marvin Gaye did with What's Going On. And that led to a conflict with Motown. We're adding a song from his Talking Book album, which I'm sure you can extrapolate that Jim and I both love,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you would be correct. But the song is Superstition.
Uh-huh.
We'll make sure You Are the Sunshine of My Life ends up in the poll, but Superstition has to be on the playlist.
When I was creating the list of bands that debuted in 1972, I almost included Stevie Wonder because you're right. He had that huge success, all those albums with Motown, but this is when he finally had creative control. And he has a run of at least 5 albums in a row here. As I see it, there are absolute masterpieces. I would feel incredibly guilty leaving Superstition to the poll and it not reaching the playlist. It has to be there. So, everybody, this is the first time in any of our shows, but we're reserving the right to do this because it's our show. That's
Yes.
21 songs. And I think this is how we're going to finish.
Yeah. And can you believe 2 years before this, he was doing Signed, Sealed, and Delivered?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Right? There is such a musical and writing and emotional growth in between those two
Oh,
songs.
yeah. Okay, Matt, we're done. I don't know if we should celebrate or cry.
Oh, a little bit of both.
Yeah, we've completed all the years in our lifetime, included a few specials and celebrated the holidays together. We have done 64 episodes of the Jam Yearbook produced in 67 weeks.
Can I take a nap now?
Yes. I'll be honest, I'm not good at completing projects or seeing things through sometimes. I think every single report card I had growing up as a kid had the comment, not up to potential. So this for me is a personal achievement. It's great to have done this with you.
Yeah, let's not celebrate or cry yet. Yeah, I share your feelings there because I'm not so good at finishing. And really, this was set up to have a perfect ending, right? All the music in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
But hey, we're not dead yet,
No, we're not.
you know. But we have one more show to wrap this all up. We have some people to thank, and maybe we should ask the audience one last time if anything needs to be added to the playlist.
Yes, we should.
And besides, let's not spill the beans just yet. We can let everyone know the future direction of the Jam Yearbook because we might be finished with the years, but we definitely aren't done talking about music.
Oh, cliffhanger. That's how we're leaving it this week.
Bum.
All right. Well, that is the end of version 1972. And I think we should leave it just like that.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. Like every week, we couldn't have done it without you. Well, maybe we could have because Jim and I, we just like sitting around talking and drinking beer. But it makes it extra special when we see people coming along for the ride and letting their opinions be known. So we want to thank you again for tuning into the Jam Yearbook. And we will see you back next week for a final cleanup.
Yes, we will. 1972 is in the books, as are all the years of our lifetime. Big stuff coming ahead. Ooh, doo, doo, doo.
Bum, bum, bum.
Peace, love, and podcast.
Peace.